Okay, before we go any further on the drywall, the patch that I did on the roof, which I didn't show you guys because I thought it was going to be quick and simple, well, unfortunately it is still leaking, but not as badly. However, before more drywall goes up, we should probably fix that so the drywall doesn't get ruined. So, as you can see, I have the ladder going up onto the roof. I have my impact down here, and then I have some roofing metal screws. And then down below, a new sheet of roofing material. I've never done this before, so let's both figure it out together, and hopefully it'll fix that leaking issue. You got a scratch there, doggy? Better get it. Better get it. Ouch, you're scratching me. Good girl. Okay, let's get up there. So I'm interested on how this will actually go, pulling this thing up here. It would be easier probably with two people, but I'm all by myself and always gonna have some protection for the sheet metal. So let's see how this goes. So my idea of a quick fix, which is better than just a typical quick fix, is to unscrew these roofing screws here, lift up this flashing, lift up the peak flashing, which you guys are currently sitting on, drag this new piece of metal all the way over here, trim it, and then screw it down where there's already pre-existing holes. We'll see how well that works. I'm hoping that'll fix it because the rain should fall onto it down there. Can you guys tell? I've got it in here. I didn't do it on camera just so I can sync it up and everything, but I got two screws holding this piece on, so even if I step on it, it doesn't go sliding out from underneath me. I took out too many screws, and so I just got to put them back where they came from, and then using what the existing screws that are here, I can screw into each rafter and hold this piece down so it won't come up in a big windstorm. Hopefully that'll solve my water issue.
And now onto the drywall. I cut this piece a little over exact, and when I installed it, the outer edges actually ended up cracking. I tried salvaging it by cutting the edges where it was cracked, but ultimately I came back and replaced this with a slightly smaller piece which fit exactly how it should have. From this point forward, I cut drywall pieces slightly smaller than their exact fit. This ended up speeding up my process and letting me hang more drywall in a given day.
Well, we got to our first challenging point here, and that would be the electrical box. So how I'm going to do this, I saw this on YouTube. Let's see here. We have our square here. So what I'm doing is this next piece of drywall is going to cover this box, but I will still have to find the box. So what I've done is on this stud, I put this up against here and flush up against this. And that should give me a pretty straight line to find the center of it. And I did that on both this side of the electrical box as well as this side. So once this piece of drywall is up, I'll be able to do the exact same thing, and it just happens to be where this ends is roughly pretty centered on this electrical box, so I can get my drywall tool. I'm using a Dremel with a drywall bit. I'll poke through it, find the edge of the box, jump to the outside of the box, trace around it, and that piece of drywall that's covering it will fall down, exposing my electrical box and the wires inside, where I can then mount an outlet. One important step before you cover this box is you really want to tuck these wires up in here. That way, whatever you're using to cut it out with, especially if you're using something electric, it won't hit it and potentially ruin the wires. So
I have the drywall sheet hung up onto the rafters, and it is time to cut out the electrical box. Since I had previously made my marks onto the exposed rafter, I can simply line up my square with the marks and scribe at the appropriate length. This just happens to fall at the very end of the square. I also previously wrote down the distance from the edge of the existing sheet of drywall to the outlet. Essentially, you are just finding the XY coordinates of the electrical box from common points before the sheet goes up. Then, once the sheet is up, use those coordinates to mark the new drywall sheet where you'll punch through with your tool of choice. In the previous video, I have said being cheap is expensive and being expensive is cheap. Once again, I tried being cheap by using a Dremel drywall cutout tool. Although my Dremel is great for other tasks like the previously installed exterior lighting, my Dremel has little power and kept stalling out. A bigger Dremel, this tool may have worked just fine. Shortly after getting frustrated, I was $200 poorer, but had another awesome Milwaukee tool. No more frustration for me.
Now we can pull these wires through here. Oh, come on, where is it? And there we go. So now we can put our outlet up here and put it in. I'm hoping I didn't get too far over here. If not, I might be able to put a little mud in there and make it look a little bit nicer. But that tool has a little bit of learning curve to it. Curious to see how the other ones go. Well, we've done as much of the ceiling as possible without removing anything other than lights and speakers. So the next step is start on the walls to use up some of the materials so we're not wasting extra movement by moving it from this wall over to this wall or maybe to that wall. That's kind of what it seems like I've been doing a little bit, just moving stuff around, and it keeps ending up in my way. So I keep moving it to a different spot, which then ends up in my way at a different side.
The drywall sheets you see me installing cover up the wall outs, which will need to be cut out. Before hanging the sheet, it is important to mark and measure the locations of the outlets. What I did is, I marked the bottom of the stud with an arrow, which indicated the side the outlet box was attached on, and measured the height. Since I want the outlets above the top of the desk, the height to the center of my outlet boxes is 40 inches. When you hang this drywall, it is important to lightly drive the screws into the drywall at first. This light pressure will push the drywall against the outlet box, which will help you when you cut the box out. Use your measurements previously made to locate the center of the outlet and use your drywall tool to poke through the drywall. Continue cutting until you reach the side of the box. My suggestion would be to go any direction except towards the stud, as the stud is a little trickier. Once you hit the edge, jump over the edge of the box, which is about 1/8 inch, and trace along the outside of the box until you have completed tracing the perimeter. Once this is cut out, a light push against the drywall will seat the drywall against the studs, where you can then finish sinking the drywall screws.
We finished up foaming this corner. I obviously have some stuff to clean up over here, like this, and all throughout the corner. Our next step is to cut these little pieces, and I'll show you exactly how I do that and the method that I was taught, which is probably how most people were taught. Let's clean this up, and then I'll show you. This is a partial sheet that I keep moving around, so I'm going to use part of it for what we need on the wall over there. So the very first step of this process is to measure what you want. You want to take the top measurement of your piece and then the bottom measurement and then connect those dots. So I've already done that. It's 32 inches top and bottom. It's like I said, or like I've said before, it doesn't have to be exactly perfect. A little wiggle room is actually kind of nice to have. I look at 32 inches and I just make a little mark in the board. Doesn't have to be anything too big. And then same process down over here. 32 inches right there. Now I get a straight edge, so I've been using this board right here. Nothing fancy. Then we find our mark. Where'd it go? There it is. And you put the one side up against it, and then you find this mark on this side, and you put that side up against it. You double check over here, make sure it doesn't move, and then I like to put my weight on it, and then you're just tracing a line. You don't have to push down too hard. All you're trying to do is score the paper so you can see it when you remove it. Then, once you get that out of your way, you're going to use your utility knife again and score it deeper. Oh, there we go. I think it's time for a new blade. So just take your time. It pretty much stays within the score line, but once in a while, if you're not paying attention, it goes off track. And you score all the way down your mark. And then, I don't really know if this is needed, but I do it every time. I do it twice. And I just like to alternate the directions just to make sure this side's cut nicely. And you follow down. Once again, pretty much does it all by itself. And voila. The score line is in this general area. So I'm just going to put my knee up against it here and lightly bump it and kind of pull with my arm over here. See? Now we have a crease mark all the way up, and that drywall is now split on that line. You take your utility knife again, and you just follow right up this line, and watch out and don't cut yourself. Whoops. I think it's time for a new blade. Oops. Okay. And voila, that's as easy as it is. Right there. And this is our sheet. Right here. 32 inches wide. This whole entire wall is basically complete as far as hanging the drywall goes. The only piece I have left to do is a tiny square right here. However, the scrap pieces that I've used where I've cut off from other sheets, I don't have anything quite big enough to fill up that gap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep plugging away at the rest of the walls, and I would assume by the time I'm done doing a wall or two, I'll have a piece to fill in that gap right there without cutting it out of the full sheet and potentially ruining that whole entire sheet. So anyways, onto another wall, let's get into it.
With a good portion of the insulation and drywall work done, this is a good spot to end today's video. Please make sure to hit the subscribe button, as that really helps this channel out. If you guys liked today's video, hit the like button and be sure to leave a comment if you have any questions or comments. If you saw a tool that I was using that you liked, the tools I use or something very similar are always linked in the description. Thanks for watching, and catch you all next time.